Greetings. Welcome to the Rose Garden. As you can see behind me, it's in glorious full bloom. But today we're not going to talk about the roses. Instead, we're going to talk about seasonal color. Seasonal color is a great way to add color to your landscapes here in Farmers Branch. Fortunately, here we really have 3 seasons. You can put in seasonal color very early in the spring when we're all first getting that itch to put some color out. And then probably later in May to the 1st of June, you'll go in and you'll replace some of that color and you'll put in color that will last throughout the summer. And then fortunately, because we have mild winters here, you'll be able to put in fall color as well. So I've got a great assortment. You can see that color doesn't necessarily mean blooms. You can also use foliages. You can use colored foliage and colored blooms. You can find color in grasses that are ornamental. You can find color for the shade, as in this coleus and in this begonias. You can go full sun for lantana. There are many, many different options, and I would encourage you to go to your independent garden centers and shop around and see what you like and talk to the knowledgeable sales help there to help select the perfect plant for your specific location. What I really want to focus on is how to be successful with those. Now, of course, it does mean selecting the right one. But as with most things, everything starts with the soil. Maybe it starts and ends with the soil. You would like to have about a 50% organic addition to your normal mineral soil that we have here. You know, we're very heavy clay. So you want to go in and amend your soil with compost. That's the easiest way to get the organic material in. Here I have some compost. This comes fresh from our community garden. We did this here in-house. And as you can see, it's just this wonderful, nice, crumbly brown stuff. You can't really discern what all the plant material was before. That means it's ready to be incorporated in your soil. Also, there's no strong ammonia smell to it, so it's not still cooking, as we say. So you want to mix this into your soil. And you might say, well, do I need to take away my old soil if I'm going to try to get a 50% blend? No, go ahead, add it to the top of your soil and till it in. That's going to give you a raised bed, and raised bed will give you improved drainage, which is especially critical for annuals. Remember, annual means it completes its life cycle in 1 season. So you really have got to give it a good start to begin with. It's not one of those plants that you want to sort of let the bed mature as the plant matures. You've only got 1 season to do that, 1 growing season. So go ahead, add your compost to it, whether it's compost that you created yourself from your own yard scraps, which is what I'm hoping you're doing, or whether you had to go out and purchase it by the bag. So you want to till that in, and you want to have it nice and loose, and really almost to the point where you don't need anything else to work it. Of course, the rototiller is going to be the easiest, but if you're going to put in pockets of color, you're going to find that using a digging fork will be best. The next thing I would encourage you to do is to add fertilizer. We have here something, as you can probably tell, is an organic fertilizer. I like using the organic fertilizers. It's Mother Nature's way of providing us with a slow, time-release fertilizer that'll feed the plants over the entire season. Mix it in according to label directions. Most of them will tell you to mix about 1 to 2 pounds per 100 square feet if you're doing a new planting. If it's an established bed, you probably need to mix in about 1 pound per 100 square feet. In terms of the ratio, if you're doing seasonal color in the ground, our soils are already very naturally high in phosphorus. So you don't really need a high middle number. You'd like to have a ratio that is about 1:1, 1:1, maybe even a 2:1:1. But you want to keep the numbers pretty close together on your fertilizer mix. You're probably going to add this maybe 2 times during the growing season. It's easiest to do it before you start planting, and then you want to scratch it into the ground during the growing season itself. Annuals require typically a lot of fertilizer to get the bloom that you're expecting off of them. So you go to the garden center and you find all these wonderful plants. You're going to find them in several different containers. This particular one is in a plastic container. These are in peat pots. It really doesn't matter which you're using, but they are going to require different treatments. On all cases, you want to make sure your bedding plants are well watered before you plant them, okay? Don't put a stressed plant into the soil. Go ahead, have it watered, have it happy, have it healthy. Also, make sure that the bed that you're planting into has moisture in it, okay? It's better if everything sort of starts on the same keel and even. The peat pots, it's recommended that if they're dry, that you soak them in water for about 15 minutes so that they're good and wet. The other thing that I like to do is I like to come in and sort of peel off the top of this. I find that it works better if I don't have that peat at the very top of my soil. Sometimes that inhibits water from moving in there, so I like to break it down. But you can see on this one very clearly that it has rooted through its peat pot. Do not remove the peat pot, okay? You would be removing all of those fine roots that are so essential to this plant getting started off on a good note. Some of the pots, and I don't have an example here, but will come with plastic around the peat pot. While the peat pot will decompose, the plastic will not. Please remove the plastic. If you don't, what you're going to find is you don't have any rooting coming out on the sides of your pot. It's only going to be on the bottom. So please remove that plastic before you plant them. Sometimes people have a problem pulling a plant out of the pot. Do not ever pull it by the stalk of the plant and pull it out, okay? I don't care whether it's a small bedding plant or a large tree. You run the risk of breaking that root ball, and that root ball is essential to its survival. So what I recommend that you do is you put your fingers in there like that, sort of over the top, and tip it over. If it doesn't come out easily, use the side of the table and it should slide right out. And there you have a nice intact root ball ready to put in the ground that will ensure that you have success with your plant. If it's super tough, this one obviously wasn't, but you can take your soil knife, remember our soil knife, also good for bedding plants, and tap the pot, and if you have to, strike it pretty hard and even crack the pot if you need to get it out. But don't jerk it by its main stem and pull it up that way. You'll mess up the root ball almost every time. So we've taken our plants, we found our spot to put them in the ground. In picking out a spot, you want to make sure that you pick the plant that's adapted to that spot, and more importantly, that that spot is adapted to you. We can all go out and plant the entire front of our house with color, and it looks great for our company coming over that Friday night. But don't plant more than you can maintain, okay? And remember, maintenance is a season-long thing. So we're not just putting it in the ground and going out and maintaining on glorious days like today. You're going to have to maintain it through the heat of the summer, or if you're fall planting, you're going to have to maintain it through the cold of the winter. So make sure that you put in what you are comfortable with maintaining, all right? If you're putting your seasonal color in pots, which is so popular right now, a word of advice is that they're going to be heavier feeders because you're using, first off, you're putting in a soil that doesn't have the same mineral content as our natural clay does. So they're going to be heavier feeders. Be aware of that. I think one of the easiest things to do is to use one of the time-release fertilizers that are out there on the market. The other thing is to make sure that you leave that soil probably about 1.5 to 2 inches below the lip of the pot. And you're thinking, oh, but I want more soil. Well, if you leave that space, then you're leaving room that you can water that plant easily and get enough water down in a watering so that your potted plants will do well. In terms of watering, it's very important that we water after we plant, okay? And we're not just watering to water the plant, we're watering to settle the soil. And I'll show you something that I think works really well. Please use some sort of attachment on the end of your hose to break up that water. If I didn't have this and I was just using the water out of the end of my hose, that stream of water is going to go in there move all my dirt around, mess everything up, splash all over the place, and not do a good job of what I'm doing. And especially if I'm using pots, it's just going to wash the dirt right out of the pot. So this is a nice one, inexpensive, it's a fan, it breaks it out, nice soft water. So you're watering right after you plant, even though I told you to have the soil wet, and even though I told you to have the plants wet. This will help settle the soil around the root ball. With any plants, bedding plants, trees, shrubs, you want that soil to settle in around the root ball, and that eliminates the air spaces, the big old air chunks in there, okay? And when roots hit that air, oftentimes they will die, they will root prune. So you want to get that soil settled in there, nice and cozy, and it'll work much better for your plants. Okay, so then after you water, we've planted our plants in well-prepared soil, we've put a fertilizer on it. Now it's time for the icing on the cake. Mulch. Here is my favorite type of mulch, not always readily available, but it is out there in the marketplace. This is native hardwood tree trimmings, okay? We're getting ours from local tree trimmers. There are soil building supplies, Living Earth, those type of places that provide soil amendments. They will have a rustic cut. They will have something that is like this. And the reason that I like this type of mulch is that it has all the plant parts in it. It has the tree trunk, it has the branches, it has the leaves, it has the twigs. So they're all there breaking down and providing important components to keep our soil healthy. Now with this, do not go in and put 3 inches of mulch on top of your bedding plants. 3 inches on top of that and you're not going to be able to find the guy. But what you do want to do is go in there and plant around it or place it around it nice and lightly so that you cover all the soil. And it will require some handwork, okay? But what this will do is conserve moisture, keep the weeds down, moderate the soil temperatures, which can be incredibly important when you're talking about August and our temperatures getting up there. And it just flat looks nice while feeding the soil. So I would encourage you to use a shredded hardwood mulch on your plants. Now when we're looking at our tools here, I have a couple of different hand trowels, but also my soil knife. And if you'll look at the soil knife, one of the nice things about it is that it is graduated. It tells you how many inches, so that you know when you're digging this one, you want a hole that's about 3 inches deep. That eliminates a lot of guesswork when you're planting, okay? You don't typically want to make your hole deeper than your plant because then the plant has a tendency to settle down and sink in. It's great to make it wider because that soil is loose and the roots will go out, but you don't really want to make it deeper. So this is a great gauge to use. This plant right here, lantana, nice small plant. I have a bed and I want color. It's very tempting to go in and put this plant in at probably 10 inches apart. The reality is this plant will easily get 2 foot wide. So know your plant, know its growth habit before you go in and you start planting in your bed so that you don't overplant them. Lantana happens to be great color for the sun here. It blooms almost all summer. And this particular plant sometimes has a tendency to come back every year, so a nice little bonus with that. During the growing season, fertilizer. I happen to really like this liquid fish and seaweed mix. It's an organic blend. It gives the plants nutrients, but it also gives the plants the benefit of good bacteria in its environment. So this is one of the things that I use regularly. I also had my pruners down here as a tool. Certain flowers, especially zinnias, some of your salvias, they're going to benefit. Geraniums, they're going to benefit from deadheading. So you want to come in and remove the old flowers so that you continue to get good bloom throughout the growing season. I've been giving you tasks to do throughout the growing season. Another one of those tasks is weeding, okay? Keep the weeds down because the weeds are going to take the nutrients away from the plants that you desire. Also, weeds go to seeds and seeds beget more plants. So, for all good, you want to keep the weeds down. Now, I brought a new tool with me. If you have a lot of seasonal color, let me show you what we're going to do over here. I have this contraption, and you may look at it and say, So I have a drill with a special auger on it, so I'm able to go and drill the holes and then plant right behind me. This really doesn't work well if you have not done a good job of preparing your bed, but if you have nice, good, loose soil, this will work great. This is also great for planting bulbs. Let's step over here for a minute and I'll just give you a quick demonstration on how it works. All right, let's see how this magic thing works. If you'll notice, I've pulled back the mulch, and then I'm just simply going to come in here and I'm going to drill down. I can pop it up, take my plant, put it in there, and cover it up. It's a great project for a husband and wife team. One can be drilling and one can be planting. It's been awesome having you here today in the garden, and I hope to see you back here next month. Have a great day. Thanks.